Every summer, a poor girl sold fruit by the roadside just to survive. Day after day, under the burning sun, she stood beside a small wooden stand on the edge of a quiet highway outside a small American town. One day, a quiet man started buying from her every single afternoon. She thought he was just another struggling customer trying to get by, until the day she discovered he was actually a billionaire, and he wanted to marry her. But what happened after the wedding shocked everyone, because one day he told her he had lost everything, and what she did next would prove whether her love was real, or if everyone else had been right about her all along. Before we continue, if you enjoy powerful billionaire stories like this one, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because the story you're about to hear might completely change the way you see loyalty, love, and money. Her name was Emily Harper. She lived in a small town just outside Denver, Colorado, where life moved slowly and opportunities were few. Emily had grown up watching her mother struggle to keep their small family afloat after her father passed away when she was young. Money had always been tight. So every summer, instead of relaxing like most teenagers, Emily set up a small roadside stand along a highway that connected nearby towns. Her stand was simple: a wooden table, a faded umbrella for shade, and baskets filled with oranges, apples, bottled drinks, and instant noodles. It wasn't much, but it helped. Travelers passing through the highway would sometimes stop for a quick snack, and every dollar she made went straight toward helping her mother pay bills. Despite her difficult life, Emily had something many people in town admired: her kindness. She greeted every customer with the same warm smile, even when the heat was unbearable, even when sales were slow, even when people drove past without even glancing at her stand. Then one afternoon, a man pulled over. He stepped out of an older pickup truck that looked like it had seen many years of use. His clothes were simple: jeans, a plain shirt, and worn boots. He walked up to the stand and picked up an orange. "How much?" he asked. Emily smiled. "Just $1." The man nodded, paid for the fruit, and thanked her politely before returning to his truck. It seemed like a completely ordinary moment. But the next day, the same truck pulled over again. And the next day. And the day after that. Soon, it became a routine. Every afternoon around 3 p.m., the man would stop by her stand. Sometimes he bought fruit, sometimes noodles, sometimes just bottled water. His name was Daniel Carter. At first, their conversations were simple. "How's business today?" "Pretty good." "Hot weather?" "Yeah, it really is." But over time, those short conversations slowly became longer. Daniel would ask about her life, her family, her plans for the future. Emily told him about her mother, about growing up in a small town, and how she dreamed of one day opening a small cafe of her own. Daniel listened carefully every time she spoke. He seemed genuinely interested, and Emily found herself looking forward to his visits more than she expected. But what she didn't know was that Daniel had a secret. The quiet man driving an old pickup truck was not poor, not even close. Daniel Carter was one of the most successful entrepreneurs in Colorado. He owned multiple retail chains across several states, invested heavily in technology startups, and had built a fortune worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But years ago, Daniel had learned something about wealth. When people knew you were rich, they treated you differently. People smiled more. People complimented you more. People suddenly became very interested in your life. But Daniel had always wondered something. Who would still treat him the same if they didn't know he was wealthy? So whenever he traveled through smaller towns, he dressed simply and drove old cars, observing how people behaved around him. and Emily Harper was different from almost everyone he had ever met. She treated him with kindness long before she knew anything about his money. One evening, as Emily began packing up her stand for the day, Daniel lingered longer than usual. He seemed nervous. "Emily," he said carefully, "would you like to have dinner with me sometime?" Emily froze for a moment. No one had ever asked her something like that before. But Daniel had always been respectful, kind, genuine. After a brief pause, she nodded. "Okay." A few nights later, Daniel picked her up and drove into the city. Emily expected a simple dinner somewhere small. Instead, he stopped in front of one of Denver's most elegant restaurants. Inside, everything changed. Staff greeted Daniel with immediate recognition. The manager personally walked them to a private table. Emily felt completely confused. Then Daniel finally told her the truth. That he explained his businesses, his investments, the companies he owned, the life he had built over the years. Emily sat in stunned silence. The quiet man who bought oranges from her roadside stand was actually a billionaire. But Daniel noticed something that surprised him. Emily didn't suddenly start asking about money. She didn't become overly excited. Instead, she smiled softly and said something that stayed with him forever. "You're still the same Daniel who stops by my fruit stand every afternoon." And in that moment, Daniel knew she was different. Over the next several months, they spent more time together. Daniel showed her parts of the city she had never experienced before. Beautiful parks, art galleries, quiet restaurants overlooking the mountains. But even after learning about his wealth, Emily remained the same humble girl she had always been. Eventually, Daniel realized he had fallen deeply in love with her. One evening, while standing on a balcony overlooking the glowing Denver skyline, he asked the question that would change both of their lives forever. "Emily, will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes as she nodded yes. Their wedding was elegant but simple. Soon after, Emily moved into Daniel's beautiful home in the suburbs. Her life changed dramatically. Luxury cars, designer clothes, vacations. A world she had never imagined. Yet Emily never lost the humble heart that Daniel had fallen in love with. But not everyone believed her love was genuine. Daniel's wealthy friends began whispering behind his back, "Oh, she married you for the money. Let's see how long she stays if the money disappears." At first, Daniel ignored them, but eventually, the doubt began creeping into his mind. One evening, he sat Emily down with a serious look on his face. "There was a fire at one of my warehouses," he said quietly. Emily's eyes widened. Daniel continued, "The fire spread to several of my businesses. Investors pulled out. The banks froze our accounts." He looked down. "We've lost almost everything." For a moment, Emily said nothing. Then she gently took his hand. "It's okay," she said softly. "We'll figure it out together." In the weeks that followed, their life began to change. Their credit cards stopped working. The expensive lifestyle slowly disappeared. One day at a store, Emily tried paying for groceries. Her card was declined, yet the cashier looked at her with pity. Emily quietly smiled and walked away. That night, she sat alone in their bedroom, looking at the designer bags and jewelry she owned. Then she made a decision. The next morning, she began selling them, one by one. Days later, Daniel returned home and immediately noticed something strange. The house looked different. The closet was half empty. Emily's expensive bags were gone. Her jewelry was gone. His heart dropped. Maybe his friends had been right. Maybe she had left. But then the front door opened. Emily walked in carrying grocery bags. Daniel looked around the house again. "Where are all your things?" he asked quietly. Emily shrugged gently. I sold them. You sold everything? She nodded. We needed the money. And if things get worse, I can start another roadside stand. I've done it before. In that moment, Daniel felt tears filling his eyes, because suddenly he understood the truth. Emily had never loved his wealth. She loved him. Daniel took a deep breath and said softly, Emily, there's something I need to tell you. She looked confused. The businesses were never destroyed, he admitted. There was no fire. Emily blinked in disbelief. I was testing you. For a moment, the room was silent. Then Emily sighed gently. You could have just asked me. Daniel stepped closer, his voice shaking. I'm sorry. I should have trusted you. After a long pause, Emily smiled softly. I would have stayed even if you really lost everything. And in that moment, Daniel realized something many wealthy people spend their entire lives searching for. Money can buy almost anything in the world. But loyalty is priceless. If this story touched your heart, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful billionaire stories just like this one. And remember, sometimes the most valuable thing in life isn't money. It's the people who stay when everything else disappears.